Hi, hey, hello. How's it going? It's Emily. And today is just in general going to be a Fairyloot books I'm excited to read vlog. These were all selected by my TBR game. By the way, if you missed my TBR game for the month of May, please do go back and watch it because my TBR game was so mean to me and it's just kind of funny. So go back and watch that if you missed it. And so these are just some of the ones that were selected by my TBR game. I had wrapped a bunch of my books and numbered them. So normally I put prompts in my TBR game to draw in the appropriate spaces, but this time I actually just put the numbers of the books that I had left over from wrapping and numbering all my books. I just put all of those numbers on the cards instead and just put them all in one pile and drew the cards. So we're unwrapping books. We've got a Formula One TBR game anyway. So go back and watch that if you missed it. But these were some of the ones selected that I was most excited about. And so I just wanted to start the month off strong with some books that I was really excited about. So one that I was incredibly excited about being picked was Rose and Chains by Julie Soto. I've heard wonderful things about this one. And although it's a different type of world from Firebird, it definitely has some common things with Firebird, and I really loved Firebird. So definitely very excited about this one just based on what I've heard and some recent books I've loved. And in this one, we're following Bryony. There are basically two groups in here that we're following, and there are definitely high tensions between them. In fact, there's a war between them, and it kind of stems from a disagreement on magic. There are two different types of magic that these groups have, and so basically they don't trust the other type of magic, or they don't trust people with the other type of magic. It's caused tensions, ultimately leading to war. We don't really see a lot of this war. We see a little bit of them growing up. So in an effort to kind of maybe sow some peace, like before this war broke out, and kind of to maintain, hopefully be on the right side of, those tensions, hopefully not broiling over. The kids from both groups have kind of been schooled together, so they have some familiarity with one another. And so at the beginning of the story, we follow kind of the aftermath of this war. Bryony has her side has lost, and Bryony and her group's type of magic is kind of a mind magic, and the other group's kind of magic is a heart type of magic. It's basically similar things, but kind of different sources for their magic, but they can do similar things, or at least some overlapping things with their magic, just different sources for the power. Anyway, and so Bryony's side has lost. Her brother, who there was this prophecy about them winning this war, or a war, and they thought that her brother would be the person to kind of fulfill this prophecy and that they would win. He was ultimately killed. So this prophecy did not come to fruition like they thought it might. And everyone on her side who hasn't been killed is probably being captured and sold off to the other side, basically. So obviously huge trigger warnings here. I should kind of start with that. Huge trigger warnings. This is very, very dark. And, we're dealing with very traumatic things going on and awful things going on. So I just want to highlight to check the trigger warnings and know what you're getting into when you're getting into this one. Like, please do not go in unaware because that would not be great. So yeah, they're being sold to the other side, and Bryony has been sold to someone who she went to school with, kind of had a thing for, like, back in the day. And he was in a bidding war with the person, like this person that she went to school with, was in a bidding war with someone else who for sure was going to do terrible things to Bryony. And so there was some sort of agreement. He actually didn't win. The person that she ends up going with did not actually win the bidding war, but kind of settled a private agreement after to be able to get Bryony. And this is a mystery that we haven't resolved yet. I'm a solid chunk, halfway-ish through. So we haven't really resolved that mystery, but so far we've followed the end of this war, people being auctioned off, and her going to live with Tovin is the guy's name. And yeah, so in theory, or at least a lot of people are doing is, I mean, worse stuff as well, but also like the intention is this other side has kind of found a way to, normally when people share magic, it can only be done by consent on both sides. But the other side has basically found a way to steal magic. And so basically the people who are being sold off are going to be kind of drained of their magic constantly, and or kind of their magic kind of being siphoned off to the other person. And they've found a way to do this with one party being unwilling. So they're basically forcing, Bryony's side, who have lost this war, to kind of be their magic siphons, essentially. Plus, obviously, other awful stuff, right? And so she is now living with Tovin, so we're getting to kind of see his, where he lives. She is, through this magical tattoo marking, kind of forced to stay on the premises. She can't really wander from the premises without feeling excruciating pain, which she tried to do and felt said excruciating pain. So she's, in this place. She has a room of her own, as does everyone else kind of living there, which isn't many people. But, she has her own room. She needs to stay in her room a lot of the times. She can go to the library sometimes, so she's trying to figure out any information she can about history and magic and anything that will help her make sense of what she can do. She's wearing this collar that supposedly is draining her magic, but, maybe it's not working, and so she's trying to figure out magic and what she might be able to do and figure out anything that she can find out that might help with her situation. And she is also trying to get as much news as she can from the outside to see where her friends have gone, where they are, like who is dealing with all of this and controlling the political situation and what's going on there. Is there any sort of rebellion that she can hear news about, and what can she do to help? So she's kind of in an information gathering mode. Tovin hasn't actually siphoned her magic off at all. She's just kind of living there. But when he's around other people, right, he is acting like he owns her and is doing some of the awful things or allowing some awful things to happen to be a part of the group and not draw suspicion to himself or not kind of stand out in any way as someone who potentially is against what's going on or doesn't want to do some of the things that other people are doing to the people who have been captured and sold off, right? So we're seeing that juxtaposition of how he's behaving in private versus in front of other people. And anyway, so that's kind of what's going on. She's in an information gathering phase and trying to survive. And we're starting to see how some of the politics might be fitting together, some things that might be going on. So I'm definitely very intrigued to continue. And yeah, we'll see what happens, but I don't know. I'm, as I said, very intrigued so far, and I'm very excited to continue. So I'm going to do that. I also actually need to take a pause from this one today and read A Psalm for the Wild Built, because I will be joining Kim on a live show, which will definitely be over by the time this is up, but I'll be joining Kim on a live show. So I'll be sure to link that below if you're curious. She has a book club, Crafting Through Pages. Expedition Through Pages is her channel name. And she has a book club called Crafting Through Pages. So we're going to read different books, do crafts that pertain to that book. Anyway, it's going to be super fun. So I'm really excited to join her. I have read A Psalm for the Wild Built, but I would like to reread it ahead of tomorrow's live show. It's super short, so I know I can just walk into a coffee shop and read it and finish it. There's also a prompt, and I forgot to mention this in my TBR video because I, for some reason, wasn't thinking about this, but there's also a prompt that my team for her TBR game needs to fulfill to read a book that's at least 100 pages in one sitting, and A Psalm for the Wild Built fills that prompt. So I'm going to read it in one sitting, and we're going to have a good time at a coffee shop reading that or rereading it and doing the live show tomorrow. So I'm going to take a quick pause from this one to do that, but then I will be back to reading this one. And yeah, so that's the plan so far, and just get some other things done today, but should be a good day. So here to check in, I have finished Rose in Chains by Julie Soto. This one was super intriguing. I was very entertained and had a good time with this one. Again, check the trigger warnings. This is dark. If you think this is of interest based on kind of the general synopsis that I was talking about, would highly recommend. But again, this is very dark. Brutal stuff happens. So just know that going in. But I was super intrigued with what was going on. She's trying to figure out more information. She's trying to put herself in situations so that she can get out of the house and interact with some of the other people who had been taken and sold off, and trying to figure out information about who went where, who might have escaped. Is there a potential rebellion brewing? What's going on there? How can she help? Figuring out more about the leader of the other side, and figuring out more about Tovin and Tovin's family and how they fit into that. And yeah, anyway, I'm very intrigued for the next book. I think the next book comes out in December, so that should be a lot of fun. Looking forward to that. And I'm also halfway through The Wind Weaver by Julie Johnson. So this one we're following, is it Rhea? And so she is half Fae, and in this world, being a Fae is not good. And Fae are targeted, so she's half Fae. She had some acceptance where she grew up, but it's tough for Fae or half Fae. And this is a war-torn country or war-torn kingdom. Times are hard. Crops are failing. There's general unrest. There are a lot of these creatures that are in different places that have made things dangerous. Anyway, and so at the beginning of the story, we don't really know why she's traveling or where she was going, where she was coming from, but we open with her having been captured by a group of soldiers. And the commander, Scythe, comes, and one of the soldiers is describing a mark on her chest that he had tried to touch and experienced excruciating pain while trying to touch this mark. And so Commander Scythe is intrigued, confirms that she has this mark, and turns out he's not actually on their side. He kills everyone and it's like, all right, you got to come with me. And so there's part of the book where they're traveling. She's trying to figure out who he is and what's going on. Is he going to hurt her? And it ultimately takes her to where he was wanting to go. And so she's interacting with some other people around there, finds out more information about who he is, and but still not a ton of information about what's going on. Along the way to get there, they experienced, an attack by another group of soldiers who are potentially hunting her down. So people are trying to track her. She's not really sure what's going on. And they also, when they both got to where they were going, there was an attack from these different creatures. So in those different experiences of experiencing fear, she is starting to realize that she might have some abilities with wind, and he is calling her a wind weaver. And so she's trying to figure out what's going on. In the aftermath of this creature attack, she needed to use this wind ability and got exhausted and kind of passed out from exhaustion, and wakes up to, in a different place, talks to the person who's there, finds out a little bit more about potentially what it means to be a wind weaver. He's telling her this other person that found her after she had kind of collapsed after using this wind magic while she had been separated and was on her own. He is telling her that there's 4 different types of, or 4 people with those kinds of marks. Very elemental. So there's 1 for wind, 1 for fire, 1 for water, and I think 1 for earth. And so there are these 4 individuals with these abilities, with these elements. And when they die, their power is kind of transferred and imbued to someone else random. And so, over the years, he's tried to track down the different people who have these marks, because according to the prophecy, if they can come together and put their magic together, they can kind of help heal the land and kind of help heal what's going on in their country. And so she's learning a little bit more about this. I don't want to say too much more, but she's figuring out a little bit more about the larger world and her magic and who some different people are that might fit into this. And anyway, so I don't want to say too much more, but I'm having a grand time with this one right now. So very much enjoying. I'm hoping to finish this one tomorrow, and then I think I will, if I can even get it, and then I think I will move on to Heir of Storms next. So yeah, some great reads so far, very much enjoying, and I'm going to get some stuff done and continue reading. So I have finished The Wind Weaver, and I absolutely love this one. I loved the dynamic between our 3 main characters. I just adore these characters. I love the magic. I love the world. And I don't know, there was some fun stuff happening about her discovering who she is, more about her magic, more about this prophecy, stuff happening at the end that's making me really excited that Sea Spinner is already out. So I'm very excited to continue this series. I'm really hoping that Fairyloot does a matching edition of the next one, which I do think they'll probably announce somewhat soon if their hints are being interpreted correctly. So very excited to see a Fairyloot edition of the next one, and definitely very excited to continue this series. This was, as I said, just fun world, fun magic, fun characters. I had a really good time with this one. I will next be turning to Heir of Storms, as I mentioned, but I am still waiting for the hold to come in on Libby. So I have turned to another vlog to start that one. I am also currently reading my book club book. So we're taking a pause on this for just a moment until my hold of Heir of Storms comes in, and then that way I don't need to use an Audible credit on it. And so we're gonna wait for that. Hopefully it won't be too long of a wait and delay this vlog coming out by a long time. Should be before too long, but anyway, so I'm gonna skip to some other vlogs and continue those, but we'll come back once I actually have the audiobook for Heir of Storms through Libby and can continue this vlog. So I haven't started the next book for this vlog though, but I did have one other thing I wanted to mention about Wind Weaver, and I wanted to do this before I forgot to mention it when I start the next book. I will say that there were times that Scythe, like the fire elemental male character, so we meet the fire and water one in here, but the fire one that initially rescues her from her potential execution, but then takes her and she's not really sure what's going on. He's not really providing her information. Like through circumstances, she had met the water, person. And I will say that, so for Scythe, the fire mailman character, I will say there were times that he was annoying me just a little bit because he's getting frustrated with her that she doesn't trust him, but also refuses to give her information. And she's literally telling him, if you told me information, it might be easier to trust you because we can at least have a dialogue about what's going on and you're not keeping me in the dark about things. Like, it's much easier to trust someone if they're giving you information. And so he gets upset that she is seemingly trusting the water elemental more. And she's like, well, he is at least telling me information. Whether it's true, you're saying it's not true, but he's at least trying to say things. And if you think that what he's saying is not true or that he's withholding certain information, then tell me. And maybe I can start to trust you. And like, there's a moment where they're talking about this and he's trying to make amends or trying to like make things better. But then she's like, okay, so if you want to make things better, tell me this piece of information. And he's just like, you'll see. And she's like, and I'm like, what do you want from her, dude? Like, how can she trust you if you're not telling her information? Anyway, so that kind of bothered me like just slightly in a few moments. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that before I forgot. But I still very, very much love this book and I'm very excited to read The Sea Spinner. Anyway, just wanted to add that. So here to wrap up this vlog, it's pretty cloudy, so this is the place with best lighting, but show must go on. I'm going to talk about Heir of Storms. I meant to check in while I was actually reading this and just read the whole thing. So in this one, we're following Blaze, and I had a ton of fun with this one, by the way. We're following Blaze. In this world, there's an emperor, and his council is made up of the king and queen, or like the rulers of the different areas of this world. So there's different groups of people have different magic, and they kind of live in areas based on what type of magic they have is kind of what it seems. And it's elemental magic: wind, water, earth, fire. So Blaze is born to a family who has a long tradition of wielding fire magic. And actually, I'm not sure everyone in each of these areas has magic or something. I think it's like certain lineages might have magic. I don't quite remember if that was described. But anyway, Blaze comes from a long line of people who can wield fire magic, but she is a water magic person. And when she was born, there was actually this huge water storm that killed a bunch of people. And so she's kind of been hidden away for 17 years since then. And so every now and again, there's this competition set of trials to figure out who the next rulers are going to be. So everyone, the emperor and the king or queen of these different parts of this world, turn over power every, I think it's 25 years, which honestly, probably a good call. And so it's about to be that time where, power is going to the next generation, and her kind of marker of magic that's on her hand, it's supposed to glow if you are selected for this competition, or if you kind of are deemed worthy by the gods to be in this competition. And so she's not expecting to be in this competition. Her twin brother, Flint, is supposed to be the one that has kind of been groomed for this and is the one who's expected to be the continuation of their family line, because he has the fire magic that the rest of their family has. And so they're not really expecting her to kind of be part of this competition. But lo and behold, her magic marker glows. And so she goes to I don't know if capital is the way to describe it, but it's like the central area where the emperor lives with his advisors, and are kind of where the advisors go for meetings and stuff. They go there for these set of trials to see who will take over as kind of the person in power with water, air, fire, and earth magic. And so she's going to compete with the water magic folks, her brothers with the fire magic folks, as is her cousin, who hates her and is super mean to her. And there's also this mysterious person who's competing for the earth magic folks, who is supposed to be the reason, or supposedly is the reason, that the world kind of cleaved in two. So along with her storm when she was born, there was kind of a similar level of event when he was born, except he's the earth land magic person. So the land split and kind of split down the middle with a little circle around the where the emperor is in the middle of this kingdom. So there's this little, so the where the king is, or where the emperor is kind of this little island, kind of, or like this little landlocked area all on its own. And then, the rest of everything is kind of cleaved into. And then there's this circle around the castle. And anyway, and so they've all gone to this central area to compete. And she is getting closer to one of the princes, but there's also this mysterious thing going on with her dynamic with this earth competitor, this earth magic competitor, because they kind of share, a bit of history in that they did something that changed the world with their magic. She's been hidden away for 17 years. He's been flaunting himself for 17 years. And so she's kind of pissed that he has gotten to live a life free and out in the open, and she's been forced to hide all this time. So they're all there together, competing, preparing for these trials, training. She's learning to use her magic. She hasn't really been able to use her magic since she was born and that storm occurred. And so she's trying to learn how to use her magic. And so she's getting some training. She's training with this mentor, as well as the queen of water magic and the people who live in that area. And so, it was super fun. I love a good set of trials in a book. I always love that structure. I love the way that it kind of moves things forward as we're anticipating the next trial, preparing for it, training, learning new information about the world. So she's learning new information about her magic and the history of the world and how those two things might fit together. And anyway, I just had a ton of fun with this one. As I said, always love a set of trials. It just is so much fun to move the plot forward, and really felt for our character here. But had a good time with this. If you're looking for just a fun YA time, would recommend. And with that, I think we're going to call it here with some highly anticipated Fairyloots, and I think a pretty successful vlog. So thank you so much for joining me. I'll be sure to leave my Instagram down below. I've been super active there. My Pango, so if you want to check out used books on my Pango, I'll leave that down below. My Etsy store, as well as the information on how you can support the Black Lives Matter movement. And again, be sure to subscribe for more bookish content, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.